Let's pray. Father God, we come before you this morning, another beautiful morning. We want to give you thanks for things that are good and beautiful and true. We thank you for the ability to perceive those things and to enjoy them with you and express them. We also see things that are bad and that are twisted. And we ask, Lord, that as we see that in ourselves, in our community, in our world, that you would work through us just to undo those things and to make good out of bad. We ask that you'd give that ability to our leaders this morning, Lord. We thank you for them. And we ask that this morning, this week, this year, you would empower them to do good and to make good things out of bad things. And we ask this in your name. Amen.
Amen. Please join it with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have a request to, under additions and deletions, to delete 7J. Any other deletions or additions?
Move approval as amended.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Under proclamations, presentation proclamation designating May 28, 2007 as Memorial Day. Commissioner Bowden will present that.
Larry, would you like to come forward, please? Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
A proclamation designating May 28, 2007 as Memorial Day. Whereas Memorial Day was first observed on May 30th, 1868, when flowers were placed on the graves of Union and Confederate soldiers at Arlington National Cemetery. And whereas on Memorial Day we pause collectively for a moment of reverence, reflecting on the heroics of those who answered when called by their country to bear arms and to protect and preserve the ideals of democracy. And whereas Memorial Day is a cherished tradition in our nation and its observance helps us appreciate our history, our values, and our responsibilities by reminding us that freedom is not free. And whereas the Veterans Council of Indian River County, consisting of over 20 veteran organizations representing over 18,000 veterans residing in the county, is holding Memorial Day ceremonies at Veterans Memorial Island Sanctuary on Monday, May 28, 2007. Now therefore be it proclaimed by the Board of County Commissioners of Indian River County, Florida, that May 28, 2007 will be designated as Memorial Day. And the Board urges all residents to attend Memorial Day ceremonies at the Veterans Memorial Island Sanctuary at 9 o'clock on Monday, May the 28th. This adopted the 22nd day of May, 2007, signed by all 5 county commissioners.
Thank you so much. I have something to say, of course. On behalf of the Veterans Council and 20,000 veterans living in this county, I would like to thank the County Commission for this proclamation. I would also like to remind the citizens of this county that this elected body, our county commissioners, has always supported the veterans of this county, and that it is because of them that Indian River County has the finest veteran service organization and the safest and most efficient transportation system in the state of Florida. Memorial Day is a national holiday that we remember those who gave their lives in the service of our country. In Judaism, when a person dies, the prayer of Kaddish is always recited. This prayer never mentions death, as it is a prayer for the living. It reminds us of the importance of life. It is in the tradition and wisdom of Kaddish that I ask all citizens on this Memorial Day not only to remember those who paid the ultimate price, but to thank all veterans that served to keep our nation free. It is never too late to shake the hand of a veteran and say thank you. I ask all of you this Memorial Day to say a prayer for our troops, and let us hope that they will have a safe return and once again become part of the mainstream of our democracy. In closing, I invite everyone to join the Veterans Council on Memorial Day this Monday at 9 a.m. on Veterans Memorial Island Sanctuary in Vero Beach, and join us in memorializing those who died in the service of our nation and those who bear witness to their bravery as well as their own. Thank you. And I have poppies for all of you. And Joe, they didn't come out of our budget. Donation from the VFW.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Here's one for you, and hopefully you guys can join us.
Yes. Yes, we
Here's
will.
another one for you.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Barry. Okay. What was that? Thank you. Thank you, You know, VFW, they don't unwind them, but they give them. So here's, and you have 2 sons too, right? 3 sons. 3 sons? Oh, we're not gonna run out. Another one. And Joe, here's one for your, sorry, for your son too.
Thank you.
What are our sons?
Thank you. You have a son to wear?
We all have sons.
Yeah, but I'm talking about young sons who will.
You're an old man.
Oh. Here, I'm going to help you. No, that's right. The next presentation will be a proclamation designating May 2007 as National Preservation Month, and Commissioner Davis will present that.
Absolutely. I see we have Mr. Tyson and Mr. Joel Tyson. I believe you'll be accepting this. Proclamation designating May 2007 as National Preservation Month. Whereas historic preservation is an effective tool for managing growth, revitalizing neighborhoods, fostering local pride, and maintaining community character while enhancing livability. And whereas historic preservation is relevant for communities across the nation, both urban and rural, and for Americans of all ages and all walks of life and all ethnic backgrounds. And whereas it's important to celebrate the role of history in our lives and the contribution made by dedicated individuals in helping to preserve the tangible aspects of the heritage that has shaped us as people. And whereas making preservation work in the theme for National Preservation Month 2007, co-sponsored by the Indian River County Historical Society and members from the Local Heritage Coalition and the National Trust for Historic Preservation. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the Board of County Commissioners of Indian River County that May 2007 shall be designated as National Preservation Month, and call upon the people of Indian River County to join their fellow citizens across the United States in recognizing the participation in this special observance, adopted this 22nd day of May 2007, signed by all 5 Board of County Commissioners. Mr. Tyson?
Thank you, Wesley. Commissioners, Mr. Chairman, thank you for the opportunity to come up and express our appreciation for recognizing the work that these organizations do. I'd like to give you a little background. I think part of it got started, and I wasn't around when it did. It was when they decided to save the Heritage Center. John Little, in his infinite wisdom as city manager of Vero Beach, I think was going to have that torn down, and a group of ladies got together, I think Millie Bunnell and Alma Lee Loy and Ruth Stambridge and Judy Voiles. I think they kind of led it, and I'm sure there was a lot of others that I don't know about. And they met the deadline that John set, and I think they forced him to write a letter of apology, which was posted in the Heritage Center. He referred to them as the Little Old Ladies Hysterical Society. But I think they made him eat crow. But anyhow, out of that, we've saved the Heritage Center, which everybody uses now, thank goodness. The train station, which is our headquarters. We've also other properties that we have acquired, the Hallstrom House and Plantation, that really got hammered during the storms, and we've, thanks to Ruth's effort and Beverly Tyson, our new administrator for the Historical Society, they worked very hard, very diligently down there restoring that. We hope to have a grand opening sometime around Christmas. But we also got the Marion Fell Library, and Fellsmere is one of our properties. Out of the coalition, Laura Jackson Writing House out at the Environmental Learning Center. But the coalition includes the Sebastian Historical Society, the Friends of Roseland, the Cultural Council, the Heritage Center, and of course the Historical Society. So we thank you for recognizing the work that all of these people do, and certainly in saving these historic properties, everybody's going to be able to enjoy it. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Jim.
Yes, I get writer's cramp.
The next presentation, I was going to have Wesley do, but I thought it'd be more appropriate if I did it, and that's presentation of proclamation designating May 2007 as Elder Law Month. Whereas older Americans are a major national resource and have needs requiring special legal attention, knowledge, and expertise, and whereas elder law is a practice, specialty in which lawyers focus on the needs of the elderly, and whereas elder law requires the holistic application of numerous legal subject areas including gifts, wills, trusts, estate planning, probate, guardianship, incapacity planning, advance directives, Medicare, Medicaid, long-term care, patient rights, insurance, and elder abuse. And whereas the Academy of Florida Elder Law Attorneys, the National Academy of Elder Law Attorneys, the Elder Law section of the Florida Bar, and Indian River County Board of County Commissioners strive to inform the elderly and make them aware of their rights and opportunities to improve the quality of their lives through elder law. Now therefore be it proclaimed by the Board of County Commissioners of Indian River County, Florida, that the month of May 2007 be designated Elder Law Month in Indian River County, and it's adopted this 22nd day of May 2007 and signed by the Board of County Commissioners. Who's going to receive this? I'm going to have Bruce come up. Okay, well, we'll see that they get this. And next is a presentation by Commissioner Fletcher designating May 20th through the 26th, 2007 as Emergency Medical Services Week.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have the distinct privilege and honor of presenting this proclamation. Whole gang coming up?
No, they said no.
This proclamation designates May 20th through 26th, 2007 as Emergency Medical Services Week. Whereas emergency medical services is a vital public service, and whereas the members of Emergency Medical Services team are ready to provide life-saving care to those in need 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and whereas access to quality emergency care dramatically improves the survival and recovery rate of those who experience sudden illness or injury, and whereas the emergency medical services system consists of emergency physicians, emergency nurses, emergency medical technicians, paramedics, firefighters, educators, administrators, and others. And whereas the members of the emergency medical services teams, whether career or volunteer, engage in thousands of hours of specialized training and continuing education to enhance their life-saving skills. Whereas it is appropriate to recognize the value and the accomplishments of emergency medical services providers by designating Emergency Medical Services Week. Now therefore, be it proclaimed by the Board of County Commissioners of Indian River County, Florida, that May 20th through 26th, 2007 be designated as Emergency Medical Services Week, with the theme, EMS, Serving Ordinary People, Extraordinary Service, and the Board recognizes the community to observe this week and appropriate programs, ceremonies, and activities adopted this 22nd day of May 2007, signed by all 5 county commissioners.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Commissioners. Brian Burkeen, the Assistant Chief in River County Fire Rescue. I want to thank you very much for taking the time to identify EMS Week. It's very important to us, and like the theme this year is extraordinary people, extraordinary service, and we are truly blessed by the men and women who sit out there in the stations every day, and they're providing a service to us. And I can't tell you and expound upon it enough that we are cutting edge. We are providing some wonderful, wonderful service out there. And it means a lot, not just to me, but for those men and women that are out there. Again, it's the hospitals, it's the nurses, it's the doctors, it's the educators, it's the first responders. It's everybody from the person who picks up the phone and dials 911 to the end result of the patient getting out of the hospital. Everybody plays a vital role. And as part of the team, I want to thank you all in helping us recognize that it's such an important matter before us. So thank you all very, very much.
In addition to the proclamation that the County Commission has issued today, we also have a proclamation from the Governor, which I will present to you.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you for what you do.
Thank you.
Next is a presentation of the Indian River County Agricultural Extension Service Status Report by Christian Kelly Bagozo, and she's the County Extension Director. I hope I didn't butcher your last name.
Yeah.
How do you pronounce that?
Bagasso, Kelly Bagasso.
Okay, thank you.
Although I don't use it very often. I just go by Christine Kelly. I want to begin by thanking the County Commissioners for allowing me to do this presentation today. It's been a long time thought of mine to come before the Commission and give an explanation of what Extension does and a little bit about where your money goes that helps assist Extension. I came here about 3 years ago, so it's been a long thought. I'd like to begin by also recognizing the fact that Mr. Baird and Tom Frame, our immediate supervisors, have done an excellent job in supporting Extension in our educational programs. Sometimes I know it's a little difficult in trying to decide which programs are more valid than others, and although we don't weigh them that way, they've been extremely supportive with the University of Florida in carrying out our local programs. I'd like to begin by first explaining what is Extension at the university level. That a lot of people have a misconception of the relationship between the University of Florida and Indian River County with regard to Extension. And Extension is a program that is a cooperative effort between state, federal, and local agencies to present research-based information to the public to increase their quality of life. And what I started off with was just a general explanation of what is Extension, and who incorporates that programming is the University of Florida and FAMU. They're in charge of this particular program at the University of Florida. In other states, we all have Extension offices in every single county in every state, and those are managed by their state land-grant institutions. In our particular case, the University of Florida reaches into every county, 67 of them, with the county extension offices, but we also have various research and education centers. And although we're a little more than 3 hours away from Gainesville, this is a tricky mouse. I want to show you that we have a direct relationship with them. We have daily contact with the University of Florida. They are considered our bosses as well as the county. In terms of Indian River County Extension, boy, this is a tricky mouse. Maybe I need to stand. Can I stand by the computer instead?
Sure.
Yeah,
The
pull the
microphone
mic
works
down
right
there.
there.
You can sit down and...
It's a quick presentation.
Turn the microphone
mic
on.
switch.
Right. The
Right
red
behind the
button.
computer, the red
right
button, there you go.
Okay. As I said before, it is a partnership between Indian River County administration and the University of Florida. Of course, many of you know the University of Florida and the Department of Agriculture through IFAS, the Institute for Food and Agricultural Services. But they also do not only teaching, which of course we have a prime example with IRAC down in Fort Pierce, but also they do research and teaching along with that. And one research facility we have locally, of course, is FMEL, and of course IRAC down in Fort Pierce. And then, of course, our job is extension, and we have an extension office here in our county and in the other counties surrounding us. Our main mission statement is to develop that agricultural knowledge through research-based technology and make that research accessible to sustain and improve the quality of life for Floridians and residents. Our particular mission statement in our county extension office is, of course, always to improve the quality of life through educational programs for our residents and visitors to Indian River County. These programs are based upon the research from the University of Florida and other valid organizations, along with certain technological advances. So hopefully we're dealing with the latest research available translated into our outreach programs. In terms of extension personnel at the university level, there are thousands of extension agents, scientists, researchers, educators, and administrative staff that all make up the University of Florida and work toward giving us the information that we need to improve the quality of life. The University of Florida Extension has created a website called Solutions for Your Life, which has translated a lot of that research-based information into documents that are more easily accessible to the lay person. So because not every extension agent can deal with every single person that lives in the county, we've used this Avenue website in which to enrich our programming as well. Our particular office consists of 4 agents. 60% of their salary is paid for by the University of Florida, and 40% is paid for by the county. We have 2 administrative staff personnel, which are, of course, county supported. We have approximately 75 Master Gardener volunteers that put in thousands of hours that translate to hundreds of thousands of dollars toward the Extension Office. And we have approximately 55 4-H volunteers that do the same. In terms of federal support from USDA and the University of Florida, our faculty comprises over close to $150,000 contributed to our county alone. They offer almost $4,400 of training, which we do periodically throughout the year. We're out of the county with specialized in-service trainings and research updates. We are also given a small operating budget from the university. And one thing that's not totaled in, but they give us as a figure with our Partners in Progress report, is all of the specialists that we extension agents tap into the county. They divide that by 67 counties and come up with the $200,000+ that they figure into have given to our county through the research that's done at the university level. So how do the county commissioners and the county administration feed into this partnership? It gets a little confusing sometimes because different counties have different levels of administration in which a county extension director has another director ahead of them, and then the county administrator, of course, and then the county commissioners. But normally what happens is the county commissioners relay their wishes or their extension needs or their educational outreach needs to the county administrator and down to my director, Tom Frame, and then to me. But we also have the extension service feeding us information and letting us know certain things that are happening statewide in which we might be need to create educational programs for some of our personnel and our lay people here in the county. We also have an overall advisory committee made up of people within our county in order to give me advice on what kind of educational programs we need to develop. Every single extension agent has their own technical advisory committee. For example, as the ag agent, I have a separate advisory committee that is made up of citrus owners, production managers, ranch owners, small farms people, things like that, so that they can give me the advice that I need in order to create programs for them. And then, of course, that goes down to the extension agents and then out through the public through our educational outreach programs. For those of you who might not be aware, we're located on State Road 60 in the County Annex Building, and after a good hurricane, we have very valuable lakefront property. I'd like to introduce our own extension agents right now. We have one of them here with us. Our 4-H and Youth Development agent is Adam Kletzer. Our water quality agent is Janet Barker as the director, and I'm also the agriculture agent. And we have an environmental horticulture agent that I haven't had a picture of her taken yet. I'm not quite sure she looks like that. How does our special county extension deliver its program? Well, we do it in many different ways, and this is something I think is a good educative process for us all to remember every couple of years, is that it's an educative outreach body. We do teaching. We do it in many different ways: phone calls, site visits, trainings, websites, workshops, different types of talks. This is Janet Barger dressed up doing a pesticide training to landscape professionals for them to get their license. And now I'd like to give an example of some of our current programs in each of our programmatic technical areas. And one thing that I always try to remember is that we have tremendous staff. We have wonderful agents doing a tremendous job. We have wonderful administrative support. We have great volunteers that put in hundreds of thousands of hours each year. And I don't know if, Wesley, if you recognize one of those volunteers.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that translates into some really great educational outreach programs for our community. In terms of agriculture, which contrary to popular belief, we still have a lot of agriculture in this county. We have over 40,000 acres of citrus and over 100,000 acres of pasture land alone. There's still a lot of research and different types of technologies being developed for those agriculturalists, and they need that information as well. This year we've spent a lot of time doing Africanized honeybee training and small farm management workshops to help improve the quality of life, not only for our city residents, our county residents, but also for people trying to make a living off of agriculture. In terms of water quality, we've done a tremendous amount of research with stormwater runoff. We have a pond management program. We do all the pesticide licensing training for everyone trying to get a license to apply pesticides. And Janet spends a lot of time with water conservation issues. One of our favorite programs is 4-H and Youth Development, and that's one of the funnest programs that anyone will really be in charge of. We have different kinds of clubs and school activities. Many of you are already aware of those. Some of you have been involved in those with your own children. There's school enrichment programs and also after-school programs. Recently we had the Tropicana contest, speech contest, which included over 1,200 students from Indian River County, and then we had the finalists here last week for the final contest of the Tropicana program. In terms of environmental horticulture, although we just recently rehired an environmental horticulturalist, it doesn't mean that that program was not going on over the last 3 years, because people still have questions about their landscaping. We had a tremendous group of Master Gardener volunteers that filled in under my direction. They did a wonderful job in trying to help educate the population of our county about environmentally friendly landscapings, water conservation. And also we did a little work with commercial horticulture in conjunction with St. Lucie County in partnership with a multi-county agent that we have there. We also have a multi-county citrus agent that is shared between 4 counties, Jack Hebb. Some of you may know already he's going to retire this year, and he's leaving some big shoes to fill. So how well are we doing our job? That's something that's important not only for the county, but for the University of Florida as well. We're required every 3 years to have something called a customer satisfaction survey, in which we send up to the university 200 clientele contacts from each agent. And they do a series of different types of interview surveys through questionnaires, phone calls, and direct contacts, and trying to determine how well we're doing our job. And for our county, we did it in 2005. And as you can see here, according to our clients, the information that we were giving out to them in our county was in the 90s for up-to-date and accurate. It was higher than the state level in almost every single category, except to the relevant in my situation. And the one thing that I liked best was the 99th percentile in delivery in time. That means within 24 to 48 hours after receiving a request, we were giving them information or contacting them back, letting them know that we were working on researching their problem. Some of this information, it was important to understand if the respondents utilized that information. We found out that 94% yes used the information that we had given them, and that 82% felt that their problem had been solved. Now that's a little bit lower than we'd like to have, but some people, they might have a particular pest problem and we suggest get rid of that plant. Well, no one likes to hear that. So in that particular case, of course, it's reasonable to suspect that we didn't necessarily solve their problem, but we still feel quite happy about the job that we've been doing based upon this customer survey. And once again, we'll be doing it again in another year, and so we'll be able to compare the 2 years since I've been here, or the 6 years, in order to determine if we're still keeping up a good job. In overall satisfaction, these people were asked how did they feel about the service that were provided, and it's not surprising to know that over 97% felt they had received the services that they had asked for. They were very satisfied with what they had received from our office in terms of from answering the calls by our staff all the way to the presentations that we do for them, the educational outreach, and just answering their questions. So we were even higher than the actual state average, which was very nice to see. Some of the positive impacts that are very important for the county to be aware of is how does this relate back to what we're doing and what are the impacts for the county. For one thing, this whole past year we've been doing water quality conservation articles in the hometown news. Janet Barger has been very diligent about that on a weekly basis in order to keep up to the public the issues about water conservation and what they can do to help conserve water. We have 4 plant clinics that homeowners can call into or actually come into to have their questions answered about landscaping difficulties. 4-H had over 120 youth involved in 4-H clubs and over 1,500 students involved in youth development activities in school outreach programs. We specialized in Africanized honeybee training for first responders, which if any of you have been looking at the news in the newspapers lately, it seems to come up every so often. We also gave a lot of training to improve small farmers' production systems so that they would lower their production costs and increase their revenue. As with any program that you're trying to improve over time, we have new programs that we're going to start delivering in the fall, or programs that we're looking into delivering. For agriculture, we're looking into more alternative ag enterprises, such as growing crops for biofuels, business management for small farmers, since a lot of the small farmers get into this as a quality of life issue, that it's a choice rather than they grew up as farmers. A lot of them lack some of the business management education to have a small farm. We're also looking at equine BMPs, which is really manure management, something that most of you probably don't concern yourself with, but it's becoming a big problem with all of the equine facilities that we have currently, and it contributes a lot to the stormwater runoff and non-point source pollution problem that we have in the county. So
I think every Tuesday we have some manure management too.
Well, I'd be more than happy to come in and give an educational outreach program on that. In terms of water quality, Janet's going to start a water institute with youth development. Environmental horticulture is going to look into starting junior master gardener programs, which is a volunteer program working with youth in which they actually give hours back to the community and in school gardens and community gardens. And also Florida Yards and Neighborhoods, which is a environmentally friendly landscaping program which helps train and teach homeowners how to be more environmentally friendly with their landscaping. In terms of 4-H and youth development, we're looking into offering summer camps to start off with for county employees, so that especially during the time frames in which there's a break between regular summer camps and your kids are running around and you don't quite know what to do, we felt that this was a benefit to the county so that staff didn't actually have to take time off to spend that week or 2 weeks with their children in the summer. Not that I wouldn't enjoy spending it with my 3 children, but I'll be happy for some additional summer camps. Also, Adam's looking into community issue awareness for some of our older youth involved in the programs, and also agricultural literacy, because as I stated before, we have a lot of misconceptions about the quantity of agriculture in this county, and we all know it starts with our youth who will then go home and tell their parents. So I'd like to end by thanking all of you individually for your support of Extension and for the programs that we have and the continued support from our administration, Joe Baird, and of course Tom Frame, who allows me just enough rope to, I won't say hang myself, but try to do the best job possibly that we can. And, you know, in an educational program, we're used to saying, and I'll answer any questions that you might have right now, but this may not be one of those times, but if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to entertain them. But thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Kelly.
Just real quick as we move on, just wanted to make some comments, Commissioner O'Brien. This would probably, I don't know if, I'm sure they're aware of your green meeting you have coming up, but this is an excellent resource to incorporate Extension into that process with the water quality agents, the master gardener, and their 4-H extension agent. If you're after the outreach and the education through the community, that's the infrastructure that the University of Florida's got in place specifically for this purpose.
Yes, I believe your representative has come to my office and talked to me before, and our water quality agent, Janet Barger, is going to attend your first, I think it's a Green County meeting that's coming up.
Yeah, we have a public workshop scheduled for the 29th, which is a week from today at the Richardson Center, and everybody is welcome to attend, but glad to hear that Janet's going to be there.
Yeah. So.
And I guess with that, just makes you wonder what the other universities do.
Probably not quite as much as we do. And for the last 15 minutes, you all have been honorary Gators.
Thank you.
Is that a university tie you have on?
Yes, it is, as a matter of fact. I know they can't see it. I need to get my gator chomp out again, I guess.
Borrow Henry's jacket there.
If we could, I'd like to back up to additions and deletions. I'd like to delete item 12C, which is authorizing the legal office to challenge pending Fellsmere annexations. I talked with Will yesterday. That was put on at my request. And I'd like to pull that primarily. We got a meeting tomorrow night with Fellsmere, and so if nobody has any objections, I'd like to pull that.
Not only do I not have any objections to that, I also think that's very prudent too, Commissioner.
Well, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Is that a motion then?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And thank you for that courtesy. The next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. I'm
can we
sorry,
back
regular
up?
meetings. A regular meeting, March 13, 2007 minutes. Yeah.
Sorry, can we back up to that item just for a minute?
Yes. The 12C.
Yes, 12C.
Yeah.
Did you authorize him to do that, or we're just going to take that off and reauthorize that? Or I wasn't really clear on that and needed an explanation. So
It's off for now. That's all.
okay.
Okay.
How are you going to put it back on?
Depends on what happens in the future.
My motion wasn't to
Ever put it back on?
I would be good with that too. Yes, but I don't know what the intent of those that voted. And one thing that I really would like to see, and I noticed there was some backup and such as that in it, and I know that the backup's important, but if we could, those issues that the commissioners are requesting be put, if they'd come under commissioners' matters versus coming under the county attorney's matters, I think that would be more appropriate if they are the ones that's initiating this.
And they always do, unless there's something that backup material that the attorney prepared, which was simply a letter, and that's the only reason it was there.
Well, in this case, the chairman asked me to prepare a memo for his matters, and because it tracked sequentially with the other items I had prepared, I thought it would fit under my matters.
I just think that whenever I bring something forward, if it's something that I'd like to see done, I ask if I could get staff, to draft up a letter of some kind to give the other commissioners some backup, but not I don't want it to come forward. And I think for the community, it's very important to understand that this isn't our attorney's office bringing this idea forward. I think it should be under the commissioner's items, and then have the particular departments on notice and ready to put forth or answer any questions that there may be. Just to bring it forth under the attorney's matters or community development or whatever it may be, to me is inappropriate.
As far as the idea goes, the idea was part of what was discussed when all of this was proceeding with the attorney that we hired, and there was discussions about what options we have, and that's what this letter is about, is options. And what options we have, unless you just want to write off the 20,000 acres now and say fine and move forward.
Commissioner, if you'd put it underneath your matters, I'd be, happy to debate that. Just as far as putting it under the attorney's matters whenever it's an issue of a commissioner, I just don't think that's appropriate. I think we ought to have the transparency.
It's not just an issue of a commissioner. It's something we've been discussing here for several times, and where it goes is
I've never talked about Sue and Felsmer.
I didn't talk about Sue and Felsmer. We're talking about challenging. In fact, we did the same thing a few weeks ago, Wesley. In fact, I think you voted for it. You made the motion. And that was challenging the commercial area at the northeast intersection of 512 and I-95.
That was a letter to the DCA, yes.
And that was another consideration.
But that had nothing to do with anything under the legal department, in my opinion. That was, and it's nothing that I told community development, listen, I want y'all to draft a letter, and then it'll be, there's two separate things here, and I don't think we're arguing over minutia, because what I see is for you putting pressure underneath this particular department to bring something forward under their guise if you're going to do it, be honest with everybody and put it under your matters, and let's move forward.
You're saying I'm not being honest with everybody?
No, I'm just saying that it has that appearance.
Okay. Did we vote on this?
We did.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll move on. Consent agenda. Oh, I'm sorry. Regular minutes of March 13, 2007.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Consent agenda. Anybody want to remove anything from the consent agenda?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to pull item D, as in David.
Okay. Anything else, commissioners?
Move approval as amended.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Item D, Commissioner O'Brien.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, this is, I'd just like some additional information. Maybe Mr. Frame can help us here. This is where the sheriff wants to use some of the modular units that have been abandoned, I guess, by the supervisor of elections. And this came up to us a few weeks ago, whether we should continue the lease on a month-by-month basis. And now the sheriff has a proposal to utilize those facilities. One of my questions, Tom, is would they remain where they currently are, and what are the ramifications for that, and how is this all going to play out 5 years down the road?
Well, first of all, if you were going to use those structures, I would certainly recommend they stay where they are. To pull those units out is very, very expensive. It cost us, the company would charge us $35,000 just to take the units away. It cost us around over $60,000 just to locate the units initially there, not counting the infrastructure that we put there. So if a decision was made, if you wanted to keep those units and use them, the only logical conclusion, I think, from a financial perspective, is to leave them where they're presently located. It would be extremely expensive. It might be more cost effective to look at other options if you were thinking about relocating those units. I came to you a couple of weeks ago with an issue relative to whether we should extend the lease or just go to on a month-to-month basis. GE Capital has told us if we wanted to just go into a longer term lease, say 3 years, they've offered to lease them to us on the basis of $4,400 a month. That would equate over the 3-year period to almost $160,000. That's a little over half of what it would cost to buy the units. So it doesn't make a lot of logic, I think, if you were looking to lease them for a short-term period, and the buyout price is about $289,000. We'd have to reimburse impact fees where we took a credit on those units for the new admin facility, and I would also have to ultimately provide 15 additional off-street parking spaces. So there are some minor costs that we'd have to look at in keeping those if you were to buy the units. It would be desirable if you could pick that unit up, if you will, and relocate it somewhere else. I know I had a conversation with Commissioner Davis briefly yesterday, and his comment was that they're ugly, and there's no hiding the fact they're not attractive looking structures. There's no architectural redeeming factors to them, and we had initially really planned to pull them out of there.
I was also asked by a commissioner yesterday what happens with the budget cuts. Will we need this? And I said I can't answer that or how it will affect us. I was asked that yesterday. I do not know if we have the severe budget cuts that are going to come down from the state. I can't answer that question because I don't know what it's going to be yet. And I was asked how that could affect the move as far as, will we need it? Because if we do get the requirement of a 25% budget cut, it's going to be severe. And I can't answer that. Oh, would this affect us moving, and should we wait to make the decision? I said I don't know. I don't know because we don't know what the state legislature has in store for us at this time because the session is going to be so late.
Right, and then I guess in the new administration building we have quite a bit of unallocated space, and I'm just questioning. We've paid for that building. If we have open space there, why are we shelling out another $300,000 for some trailers that once this building is demolished and is green space and we have a wonderful new administration building, then we have these trailers here that we're going to have to pay extra for when we got vacant space in the administration building.
And I guess it's just a question of what the various costs are. As an example, we've got approximately 23,000 square foot of shelled area within Building 2 of the new complex. The estimate that we have, and it's just an estimate, to go in and finish off any of that area, we estimate to be approximately $100 a square foot. You, of course, can buy the structure over there for right at $29 a square foot. So there's a difference. It just depends on where you want to spend your money and what you think the value is. It's like I said, if you were going to relocate this structure somewhere else, I certainly would advise against it. It's not cost effective. If you're going to use it for any length of period of time, you ought to buy it. If you're not going to buy it, then I really think probably the best thing to do would be to pull it out of there.
I'd like to comment. I don't know if I'm going to have the money either. The way things are looking, I've got we hadn't programmed the sheriff to go in the new building or be a part of it, or the clerk of the court, and they're both requesting space at this time. And we hadn't programmed them in on, even the consultant we hired to do the space needs had not included anything for the sheriff or the clerk of the court in the new building, so it'll fill it up a lot quicker than we had anticipated. Plus, if the state comes along with the budget cuts, everyone will be reducing personnel. If they talk about 25% tax increase in my general fund, 57% of the general fund's constitutional officers, 20% of it's state. I'm only 26%. If you say, well, they don't have to make the cut, the constitutionals, that means that's cut with the state and the constitutionals. I'd take 80% of, you won't have any staff left in the county under you. So keep that all in mind. I'm getting a little concerned. I'm actually like to postpone all decisions right now. I'm getting so concerned, I'd like to postpone any decisions we make on anything until after we see what the state legislature does. I am that concerned with our money situation. It's not, I talked to the sheriff yesterday, and if he has to cut 25%, he's talking about cutting 126 officers. And so we all need to be very realistic of what's happening. All the pet peeve, we've got all the state agencies. I suggest we don't fund them anymore. The state they didn't cut their own budget. So why not let that, why should we have to fund state agencies? I suggest we cut them totally out. We may have to make decisions we've never had to make, cut all nonprofits out of. I mean, there's some very hard decisions that could be coming down in the and we need to postpone any decisions till we get funding. That's how bad it is right now, and it's critical.
Tom, what's the process in permitting that modular structure to be there?
Well, the structure complies with the Florida Building Code. It's not classified like a mobile home. It's a manufactured building, which means it complies totally with all the building code requirements. When we went to the city of Vero Beach initially to get approval to have it there, we had to go through site planning and everything else. We had to permit it just like a permanent structure. So from the perspective of the way it's permitted, it's placed there, it's got everything's there as though it's a permanent structure, and it was permitted as a permanent structure until such time as we chose to remove it.
Thank you.
Mr. Frame, are there currently any leases that would be offset by the sheriff moving his personnel into that building?
My understanding is that if the Mace unit was to be relocated from their present location, there is a lease that the sheriff pays there. I think it's in excess of $40,000.
Annually?
Yes, I think that's the number. I believe the sheriff could probably more directly give the actual numbers.
Sheriff?
And do you have a month-by-month lease arrangement now? Did you leave it with them?
Well, yeah, it's right now we're at a month-to-month lease basis. We anticipate not having any use of the structure after June 30th.
It's about a $4,000 a month lease.
The old lease we had was running right at $6,000 a month. The month-to-month lease elevates slightly over that, but if we were to enter into a 36-month lease, they would drop it down to $4,400 a month.
That's where I got that. So that
$4,400, that's pretty close to
where they are now.
The other lease that's housing that specialized unit.
Yeah, the lease on that is $43,800.
$43,800.
Yeah.
Sheriff, I don't know whether to ask this of Tom or the sheriff, Mr. Chairman. What would be, I really don't like the facility there. And I think that with the expansions of the jail and the creation of the new administration building, we've had a concerted effort to move public works closer to their machinery and their barn. We've had a concerted effort to try to consolidate in one area as much as we possibly can. Now, is there a way of terminating this lease and saying, okay, if Sheriff, if you need this space, getting with the company and say, okay, we're interested in doing something like this if it's our best economical opportunity, but move it closer to someplace near the Sheriff's Department? I mean, basically just do like we've done with the supervisor of elections, but do it out there at the jail and tell them we don't want this because we don't want it here. We might get a better deal on the unit and get them to relocate it and tell them to get it off there when their lease is over.
We think it could cost $200,000 to relocate it.
I'm not saying us do it.
Well, someone's got to pay.
Well, it's their building. They'd have to get it off.
Who?
We don't own that facility over here. Correct?
No,
we lease it.
But we do have to pay to have it removed.
That's a part of our lease.
Part of the lease agreement is I have to pay the tear down cost, which is approximately estimated to be about $35,000 for me to move it off the site.
I didn't realize that.
When we originally put that structure in there, we put a sprinkler. There was a request for us to sprinkle it. There's a cast iron sprinkler system in there. All that has to be torn out. There's quite a bit of work that has to be done to relocate that structure anywhere.
So either way, we're looking at a $35,000 cost.
Yeah.
I mean, if we move it to a separate area, or unless we leave it there, then we've got some site improvements to do with some 15 parking spots.
That's correct. If we choose to move it off the site, whether we tell the company to come get it or whatever, it's a minimum. It's going to cost us $35,000.
How did we word that? I mean, we're finished with it. Come get it, and they say, okay, that'll be $35,000.
Well, that was part of the initial agreement we entered into when we first leased the facility.
We said we'd break it down and give it back.
Break it down, and they'd come get it.
Yeah, they told us up front that was what it was going to cost us when we entered into the agreement.
I'd like to see us get back to the company and say, hey, we'll do a 3-year lease with you under the condition we'll pay the $35,000, but you guys, we set it up on a different location. if they're willing to give up $2,000 a month from our current month-to-month to the 3-year lease, I think they're probably pretty interested in keeping that thing rented, because they may not have another person to lease it to, so then they're going to zero rent, and they might be willing to work something to move it, part of that $35,000, reset it up, and get 3 years at $160,000 of income off that unit as compared to sitting empty somewhere. So,
and I'm not opposed to purchasing it if it's of the quality that we're talking about with the square footage and letting the sheriff's office have it. But it's the issue of where it's located, but Commissioner O'Brien's idea, and I'd like to hear from the sheriff on this, but that'll also give us enough time to see what the legislature is going to do.
Well, I may need to use that money. I'll tell you right now, from what I'm hearing, I wouldn't like to make any decisions on anything. I've put a freeze on hiring. I put a freeze. I mean, I think we need to see what they're doing before I can make any decisions. I may need to use that cash for something else. It's that drastic, I think. And, if they do it ask the sheriff, if they cut us 25%, what it would do to him.
Well, if they cut us 25%, they won't come home all over the state.
I think
that's a huge.
Let me just say, I understand totally what Joe's saying. I know this came up recently about this building, but I've been negotiating for this building for well over a year before Kay ever vacated it. And we've looked at a lot of these options. And while you're talking about $35,000 to tear it down, you're not talking about site preparation and impact and everything that goes along with that to move it over on a site on the sheriff's office. So we had gone through all of this as a feasibility of moving the building, and I have to agree with Tom. It is not feasible to move that building. I don't think that we'd be able to negotiate with that company, because the big time element in it is actually tearing it down and loading it on something to transport it. Once it's on there, it doesn't matter whether they transport it here, Palm Beach, or whatever. The additional cost that they incur is not that great, so I don't think that we've got a strong hand to negotiate on this thing. My big problem is I've got between 38 and 45 people that I've got crammed in areas that I need to move, and we definitely need the space. Now, whether this is feasible or not, I don't know. I've had a concern that the thing is being occupied by a private enterprise right now, rather than us having a shot at it. I've got a problem with that, and
is that the case?
Well, let me explain that. Turner is in there. I either had to pay, it comes on my cost, I had to pay for them to rent a trailer, or I put them in there where I'm already renting it for that 30, 60-day period. So it was a cost savings. It's not a private, they're doing work for us. I was going to have to pay for them to rent a trailer, and we came up with the option of moving them there rather than paying rent, because we were already with the move and the cancellation clause while we made decisions. It was cost effective. Okay. It's not a private enterprise. It's someone doing work for us that would be they took that out of their cost factor because we're paying it's in there.
Okay.
Let me point out one thing, and the sheriff is right. The relocation cost, it's not just a point of picking it up and relocating it. I spent, for instance, it cost me over, I looked at some numbers this morning, just the first numbers I could get my hands, I spent over $96,000 just getting those units there. The company itself charged us $63,000 for the setup. We had to buy ramps that we put there. That was $14,000. We had to jack and bore utilities there. That was over $18,000. And I'm not even talking about the cost of the engineering costs that we had to hire and the additional paving work and stormwater that we had to put in. So it's the site preparation and the infrastructure that you've got to bring to the location that's going to drive that price up too. I could come back with you with maybe more accurate numbers, but the point is, the relocation of that structure is extremely expensive and probably not cost effective.
Well, nobody's going to speak.
Mr. Chairman, I think we need to look at this a little bit more and get some more information. I would move that we table this at least until after the state legislature meets and we see what the budget's going to look like, and before we start spending over $300,000 that we may not have. So I would move we table this and review it after the legislature is done.
Yeah, and what we'll do is we'll keep leasing it, and then if things aren't as bad, we can make that decision. I know the sheriff does need the space if we don't all get cut. If we all get cut, everyone's going to be cut. I've got to tell you, I can't take out of my departments.
How, if you're going to, and forgive my ignorance on how this works, but with this being you want to move the mace and the detectives bureau in there, is there an issue with, as far as security on a modular unit of this kind, as far as the files? And I don't think you'd store evidence there, but maybe you would. I don't know.
No, not really. I think everything that, of course, it'd be alarmed like anything else, and there's not a security issue on it. We're looking at moving those two divisions and then relocating human resources, utilizing the area that human resources are now using for training and a more appropriate use in the jail. Right now, we've got civilians that are going upstairs in the jail area, and it's somewhat of a security risk there. More than anything else, but we're tasked with 25,000 hours a year of mandatory training, and we're just out of space. I mean, we've got people crammed into to areas that are just not suitable to do the job in a proper manner, and we would be relocating between 38 minimum and 45 maximum, along with this building utilizing some space. We've got some off-site storage that we're renting that we would be removing from that. But the thing is, we're incurring additional cost, even in moving in that building, with some agreements that we had finally come down with Tom, of the additional electricity and so forth like that we would be taking on in this.
There's a good chance, Sheriff, that what you're asking for is probably the best thing, and especially with Tom Frame recommending it. But I'd like to just give us a little more time with Commissioner O'Brien's motion, and let me come out. I haven't had a chance to visit with you on this issue, and just let you give me the first-hand tour to where I'll feel comfortable in making my decision. Right now, I don't like the location of it. I don't like the looks of it. But what I don't like may not make it a bad decision still.
For clarification, is Turner using the whole facility?
Right now, I think we're letting them use part of most of the facility. And the attorney's office has got someone over there.
Do you have an attorney over there?
Yeah. Yes, we do. Under normal, the sheriff did ask for this he has written me a letter over a year ago, and we've been working with him. Under normal conditions, this would be an easy decision, but what we're faced with the legislature, I'm a little concerned to do anything. I mean, I'm going to have to do things I've never done before.
So you're changing staff's recommendation?
Yes, if we're going to, I think, why don't we get with Sheriff? I think he's got a lease right now. He's got a lease on his mace. If we could transfer that money to this, and maybe he make the lease, if he made the lease, let's give us another week or two. And I think he mentioned the lease for the mace, and we'll come back. I think we're going to need some time, because I think he has to make the mace payment anyway, don't you?
Some of that, there's a significant amount of that lease money that's on a grant, and could very well dry up also. So, I don't know. I mean, it's the lease money on the facility that we're now renting is kind of a gamble and has been. So, but that would be the mace unit.
Was that a second, Wesley? Or?
Yes, that's the second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
When you look at this down the road, would you also look at some maybe embellishment, architectural and landscaping? Because if we do go that way, and if space is needed, you've got to have it. Now, if the legislature, comes to their senses and, works with us, we don't know. Hopefully they will. But we'll need if that stays, we'll need a backup plan too.
Maybe I could address that this way to the extent that I can. We have a certain amount of money within our project to raise this structure here. It would be nice if there would be enough, but I can't sit here and tell you there'd be enough money to do any kind of embellishment.
I'm not committing to anything right now. I don't think we should commit to anything until after what we've done.
I'm not committing to it. I'm trying to get options here.
Yeah.
That we don't get down to the end of the road and we have to make a decision and we don't like the decision we have to make.
Yeah. What she's asking is basically if we do shift, it can, and to bring some kind of level of landscape or something up to where it looks like a
No.
facility, not a modular unit in downtown Vero.
No, it's actually addressing where Tom Frame was saying about taking the money. I don't want to address that right now because we do not know how we're going to tearing down this building. We may have to reprioritize everything we do and look at things a lot different than we have in the past. It wasn't what Mrs. Bowden said. It was moving the money from tearing this building down. I don't think we should do.
And I didn't mean to represent that. I just said if there was anything left over, and I'm not sure there will be, that might be an option. That's all I was trying to represent.
Yeah, we can have Christine come do it as an extension demonstration project of xeriscaping.
might be out of a job, Christine.
Solve all of our problems.
Solve
There
all
you
the
go.
problems,
That's
right.
right.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
Yes.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
I'm going to continue to work with the sheriff on options, but we're in that dilemma, unfortunately.
And I'll get
Thank
with
you, Sheriff.
I'll get with you, Sheriff, too. I want to come out and see what you're talking about.
Okay, and under constitutional officers, Sheriff Roy Raymond, 2007 critical infrastructure project. It's information only. Anybody got any comments, anything about that?
No, sir.
Okay, public hearings. 27th Drive petition water service north of 4th Street, Indian River County, project number UCP-2906, resolution 3, and that's found on pages 84 through 93.
Dan Chastain, manager of assessment projects. We came to you back in April with this project and advertised it, set a date for a public hearing of May 1st. Then we modified the project to serve a couple of additional properties. It's now been redesigned to serve 10 properties. The petitioners here today, I don't know if any of the other residents and property owners are here. We have an estimated project cost to extend the water main on 27th Drive, which runs north of 4th Street across from the Citrus School. An estimated cost of $44,344. The owners are eager to have us bid this out, get this project under construction. And the staff is recommending that you adopt Resolution 3 in order that we can proceed with this task.
Move staff recommendation.
Second.
The public hearing.
Yeah.
Sorry about that, Commissioner.
Any questions?
Just, Dan, the property owners we have 100% support of this? In the
yes,
estimated costs, everybody's
that's
on board?
correct.
Okay.
Okay.
Like all of them.
We'll open the public hearing. Is there anyone in the public like to be heard on this issue? Seeing none, close the public hearing.
Now move staff recommendation.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Under public discussion, request to speak from Joseph Paladin, Board of Directors, Gifford Youth Activity Center regarding county funds for Gifford Youth Activity Center found on page 94. Mr. Paladin?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. I'm Joseph Paladin. I'm part of the Board of Directors of the Gifford Youth Activity Center. Last week, during the meeting, we cut the budget of children's services, or voted to do that. And I understand that, but I didn't realize that's what was going to happen last week. I'd just like to give you a few facts on the Gifford Youth Activity Center because that's going to affect us. Back in 1998, the graduation rate of the minority kids in the Gifford area was around 23%. Now it's around 37%. It's a significant improvement, but it's still very poor. Let me tell you just a little bit more about the Gifford Youth Activity Center. We have a CAPS program. We have 91 kids in our CAPS program. 91 of those kids graduated from high school. 89 of those kids are going on to college. The other 2 are going on to the armed services. That's a 100% success rate. Right now, with the current budget, we can take care of around 225 kids a day, which we are. With the monies that we've requested, we could take care of 300 kids a day. We don't have a lack of kids. We just have a lack of funds to take care of those kids. Realistically, investing in the kids is investing in our future, and it's going to bring more money back into the county. It's a proven fact that kids that graduate from high school will earn over $250,000 more. It's a proven fact that kids graduating from college will earn maybe $600,000 more. Anyway, it's a significant improvement to giving back to the community. And we need to take care of these kids. These kids need us. I'm asking you just to open up your minds a little bit and try and find a way that you can help us and open up your hearts and try and help these kids. I'm sincere about this, and all the people that work at the Gifford Youth Activity Center, a lot of them are volunteers like myself. We give our time, but we need these funds to take care of these kids. And I would ask that, if you don't mind, Mr. Chairman, there's a couple people here on the board from the Gifford Youth Activity Center that could add a little bit more than myself, and I would like to step down and ask that you let them speak if they wish to. Thank you.
My name is John Dean. I'm the chairman of the board of the Gifford Youth Activity Center. I've been there since the inception. And when we did start, you all remember Dan Richardson. You all remember Dr. Ronald Hudson. You all remember Carolyn Eggert, one of the county commissioners who was very much part of our visioning and a key element in our going to work on that. I would just ask your continued commitment to work with us. And you've done that very successfully in the past. Right now, we stand and we have 4 legs on our chair. God is our corner post. We've got a whole bunch of partners, We've got our staff and our board, and then we have the county commission. And I feel for you because you got hard decisions ahead of you. But as you look at us, if your position with us weakens, our strong leg is crippled. So I just encourage you. We know that this is not a public hearing or anything like that, but we just want to ask particularly that you would be mindful of we're as strong as our weakest link. And we have areas there that we're working hard. For 10 years we've made a difference, and it would just be a shame, and I just ask that you use real wisdom and discernment and keep us as a top line. Might have one more person or two just say a few words. It is not a public meeting to do this, we know, but we just want to emphasize that we appreciate the county commission. We would not be here if it wasn't for the county commission. And we have championed that and believing we're doing a good job, and ask your continued support.
Is it possible to get a PowerPoint up, or is that going to... I don't see any driver today.
I can't do it.
We usually call ahead so we can test it, but if we're going to take a break in a little while, I could have someone come
I'm pretty good at this. I can
okay, you can do it. Go ahead.
I just don't like to mess with other people's equipment without asking first. Some of the stats that Joe was talking to you about, can I talk while I do this? That way we're not wasting any more time. I don't want to take up any more time. I know you all are busy.
Yeah, we need your name and address, please.
Hi, I'm Michael Hubler. I live at 5215 Compass Point Circle in Vero Beach, 32966, and I'm the executive director of the Gifford Youth Activity Center. And some of the stats that Joe gave you are pretty phenomenal. Those are from the U.S. Census Bureau. $250,000 more if a kid graduates from high school they're going to make over their lifetime. The reciprocal amount of that money being in the community and being respent as that person bought shoes, and then the person that sells the shoes bought sodas and other things, is 6 to 8 times. So you're talking about $4.8 million to the community minimally for every child we get through high school. That's a pretty significant amount of money. When we're talking about the kids we've already gotten through our CAPS Upward Bound program, you're talking about an $18 million contribution just from getting through high school. Above and beyond, that doesn't count the ones, because only 37% normally graduate. That only counts the 2/3 that would get that to that point. Let's see. There we go. And if it's okay, I'll talk from here because I got to drive. I'm going to give you a copy of this. There is one update to this, and that is that Joe Paladin included our numbers for this year's graduating class. Thank you. So when you see the achievements page where it differs and it says 78, we have 13 graduating this year, and that's where he got his figure from. And that's what we provided in the individual class, to include the kids that will graduate a week from now that already have already enrolled in college and plan to go. The program itself also gives the kids a 2-year degree automatic as part of the participation. So they're guaranteed to go to IRCC and get a 2-year degree for participating in this program. The net effect of that we're talking about, that's $600,000 per child when they get an associate's degree. The net effect to the community is 6 to 8 times that. Again, a huge difference in our community just by getting a few of these kids through. Real quickly, some of the things that we do. We started out just working with the kids in education. We quickly found that wasn't enough. There's a lot more that needs to be done. According to Dr. Eric Cooper, who did a presentation for the school board just recently, we've got the #1 factor impacting education has nothing to do with the schools at all. It's the family situation. It's the home environment. And the school district is challenged severely to impact that to make a difference with these kids. That's 44% of the problem. So that's where we step in. We're the bridge between these families and the school. And that's why we can impact and have such a good response rate to what we're doing, because that's where we're broke, and that's what needs to be fixed. Recreation, obviously, we provide. Youth and family counseling, that's a major component to working with the families. We got a lot of families with severe issues, and we deal with that on a regular basis. A special assistance to people, hurricane assistance. When the hurricanes came through, we stopped what we were doing and became hurricane assistance. We housed some of our local firefighters with EMT crews and things of that nature, anything we could to help out the community.
Let me interrupt you just for a second, and from the commissioners, we kind of fell into this presentation, and if it's your will to continue with this presentation, we can. But we're kind of getting way off track. We're putting this ahead of, I think we're going to have a lot of this budget year. And this isn't about the job that's being done there. We all know it's doing a wonderful job. This is about finance and money. And I'm just thinking, if we're going to do this, I hate to set a precedent as where I'm coming from, and every week have another nonprofit come in and do a presentation based on what was given to us for, what's supposed to be a brief time. If the commission would like to continue with this, we can continue with it, or we can put this in the proper format and bring it back at the appropriate time.
Mr. Chairman, currently, Children's Services is a competitive bid funding process, and they are right now in the midst of reviewing over 30 different proposals that came in requesting for funding. Last year, about $1.6 million of requests came in, and Children's Services funded about $1.2 million of that. This year, it looks like the requests are coming in about $1.5 million, and currently what we voted on, they'll have about $1.1 million to allocate. But this particular presentation would be more appropriate at that grant review committee when they are deciding what programs to fund and what not to fund. If you disagree with what the Children's Services Advisory Committee recommends to this Board of Commission, that would be the more appropriate time to come up for this presentation. But
also funded under a separate source,
and that's
operating source as well.
And that's what my question is.
Well, that is under agreement. That's under a very specific agreement. So
right,
that
and that's
doesn't
under
change.
Children's Services.
Yeah, that's on an escalator, and it's in an agreement. So that part doesn't. Let me say this: that there's a specific process for nonprofits, and this year we're starting to hear everyone wanting to get on the agenda because it's going to be a hard year. You're going to get your state health departments, all your nonprofits. I think we've got to be careful. We have a very definitive process to make it fair and equitable, and I think we should keep it that way. I think you're right that this presentation should be done to the Child Services and to make it fair, because they're going to review all and based on what we see, it looks like the Gifford Youth Activity Center is doing a good job, and they have to weigh and look at and ask the questions. And I think we set that committee up for that very purpose, and we need to keep it in that avenue.
I guess my question is, Joe, the best thing that could happen is right now would be inform us in the event the legislature does what they're talking about doing. What does that specifically mean to the Children's Services Advisory District's millage or budget?
Right now, we said we were going to look at funding 1.1. That's
why though?
We're looking at a minimum of 10% less.
Right.
If it's 25% less, it could be more. We're going to have to prioritize our needs. They're talking about going to the local level and allowing us to only collect 25% get 25% less in tax revenue than we did in prior years. So what that'll do to us is that means we have to cut 25% out of our taxing funds and all the nonprofits.
Well, and that's kind of my point, is I think we know the good things that happen in at the Gifford Youth Activity Center. I've been there, all of us have been there. I think that the issue really is, though, we don't know what's coming, and what we did last time or at the last meeting is said, there's a good chance that we're going to have to do this, and I think it would be doing everybody an injustice if we didn't let them know from where we sit what we're fixing to be told to do. Mm-hmm. And so this probably would be better off in front of the legislature.
We're going to have other agencies also. If we let them do this presentation, they're going to say unfair. You treated them different than you did us, and we don't want to do that. We've got to be very careful about this. They'll say that we showed preference, and I think we should probably send this back to the Child Services and have keep the process fair and equitable, because other agencies and nonprofits will be upset or want to get on the agenda also.
And that was my concern, is setting a precedent here, because we do deal. I had people in yesterday from Council on Aging, for instance, that they're having trouble getting meals to elderly people. Yeah. And, looking at budget. In fact, I sent them to Mr. Baird, and they're going to talk to the other commissioners. But I think that, I apologize. I didn't expect this, and I apologize for interrupting you. But I do think that we are setting a precedent that we shouldn't set, and this needs to follow procedure.
So,
if the wish of the commission, I'm hearing a consensus.
Mr. Chairman, again, nothing against what your group is doing, but this is really not the appropriate place. Yeah. The Children's Services, I believe in 2 weeks they will be doing their grant review process. That would be the exact perfect time to come before them and demonstrate the validity of your proposal that you submitted to them, and then that advisory committee will come back to us with their recommended funding. But this is a little bit premature. Children's Services met last night, and I can tell you that there's no one in the audience last night in front of that committee. I would suggest you start coming to the committee and getting to know the people on the committee.
We already know them very well, and our intent in being here is not to promote GYAC so much, but to say that GYAC is one of many that are funded by Children's Services, and that we would be negatively impacted by the cuts. And we understand you're in a hard position because the cuts are coming to everybody across the board, and we understand that. But we would ask that you kindly consider keeping maybe a little special heart for the children this time around in the cuts, because it's coming to everybody, but it came to them 2 years ago at 4%, and it came again last year with no increase when others got increases. So they've already had a considerable hit over time, and I'm not sure on all the stats in the past, but I know that you guys have done a great job for us, and we appreciate it. We just want to have keep in front of you and let you know that we appreciate you, and that we'd love to see you have a heart for the children in this, even though it's a difficult decision time.
And I'd like to point out that when the administrator brought this to us, he asked for a second approval to cut it further down to $1 million, and I argued against that, and so the only vote we took was the one reduction to 1.1. So we are very, very aware of what not only you all do, but all those other agencies that get funded, what you do for the kids, and we're very aware of it. But this is a tough budget time, and the administrator did want to go further, and we voted against it. So we all are very aware of the need to.
Excuse me. You might want to explain that you are the commission liaison.
I'm the liaison
to
Children's Services. Yeah.
On your own doing this.
And I might add too. I think everybody needs to hang on their hats, because the legislature doesn't even know what they're going to do yet. Yeah. But I would be willing to wager that whatever they do, if they do something, will probably make things worse than better.
Oh, yeah. I'm one of the 3 people in the state of Florida that doesn't mind paying taxes, so I'm the rarity.
Do the other 2 live here?
Mr. Chairman, the reason for bringing this forward and talking about it today was last week when it was on the agenda, no one really understood that that was going to be voted on to cut the Children's Services, so they felt like they were we're all blindsided with that. Well, would it have been proper for us to speak on it last week?
I'd like to say that it's a policy decision. Let me make one thing clear, that the board is very committed to child services. Just a few years ago, we were only funding $300,000. Now we're funding. It's had the biggest increase. I think you made it sound like there's been a decrease. It's had the biggest increase of anything that we fund has gone into child services. So I want it clear the board is very committed. So that's misinformation. Also, we normally do set, the Board of County Commissioners tries to set the maximum amount so that they know what they've got to work with as a committee. And they'll look at all of the packet information, and that committee will make a decision and live within those boundaries. We try and set the parameters, and that's all we were doing.
Yeah, I was certainly making no assertion that you didn't do enough. I don't think I said that. I was just asking that when it came up last week, we didn't understand it. We might have had a chance to have some input on that last week. I was the only one here, and I didn't get recognized by the chair to speak. So was that improper to speak last week, or because you're saying we shouldn't be speaking now? Or?
Well, I don't know. When you talk about proper, we run a pretty open meeting here, and we recognize people regularly. But these aren't public hearings, and you know, I don't know that it's proper. But when people want to be heard on an issue, they're almost always recognized.
Yeah, I'm sure you probably just didn't see me. I wasn't saying you wouldn't let me speak. I just guess you didn't see me.
And it wasn't a public hearing, but it was on the agenda. And as I said, when people want to be, in fact, Joe, you probably been recognized more than anybody else that attends these meetings.
I think that point's been made clear.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was the reason for bringing it forward, is that we thought we wanted to at least tell you what we were doing. And, you know, having a 100% success rate, we're kind of proud of that, and you don't have too many other programs, I don't think, that you can show a 100% success rate on. So if you can find a way to help us, we're just asking you. We'll do anything we can to help you help us. Thanks for your time, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Under public notices, notice of scheduled public hearings for June 5th, 2007. Consideration of proposed amendments, section 913.10.2 of the Code of Indian River County to lower the rating on bonds securing warranty of subdivision improvements. It's county initiated, that's legislative in nature. And consideration of proposed amendment 972 of the Code of Indian River County to limit temporary vehicle sales locations, county initiated, that's legislative in nature. And Indian River County petition for closing, abandonment, and vacation of a 3-foot strip in Mooring Lines Drive adjacent to Lot 138 of the Mooring subdivision. That's legislative in nature. Notice of scheduled public hearings for June 5th, 2007. Meadowlark Woods petition, water service, 61st Avenue, north of 41st Street, Indian River County project number UCP 2324, memorandum dated May 10th. That's administrative. Notice of a scheduled public hearing for June 5th, 2007. Adoption of an ordinance containing the new elections franchise agreement with electric franchise agreement with the Florida Power and Light Company. And that's memorandum dated May 16th, 2007. That's legislative in nature. And we'll take a 10-minute break.
Your Indian River County Commission meeting is in a brief recess. Please stay tuned. The meeting will reconvene in just a moment. Your Indian River County Commission meeting is in a brief recess. Please stay tuned. The meeting will reconvene in just a moment. Your Indian River County Commission meeting is in a brief recess. Please stay tuned. The meeting will reconvene in just a moment. Your Indian River County Commission meeting is in a brief recess. Please stay tuned. The meeting will reconvene in just a moment. Your Indian River County Commission meeting is in a brief recess. Please stay tuned. The meeting will reconvene in just a moment. Indian River County Commission meeting is in a brief recess. Please stay tuned. The meeting will reconvene in just a moment. Your Indian River County Commission meeting is in a brief recess. Please stay tuned. The meeting will reconvene in just a moment. Your Indian River County Commission meeting is in a brief recess. Please stay tuned. The meeting will reconvene in just a moment.
Meeting back to order. Under Utility Services. Daisy Hope Center, Douglas School Private Lift Station, and Force Main approval of work. Authorization Directive 2007-003, UCP number 2940, and WIP number 472-169000-07514, on pages 98 through 101.
For the record, Eric Olson, Director of Utilities. Basically what we're requesting, the Daisy Hope and Douglas School currently, although county-owned or operated by the school, actually the Daisy Hope Center itself, historically they've been on a septic tank system. The septic tanks have failed, and we've been in the process of trying to convert them over. So what Utilities is recommending is that we proceed and do it right the first time, go ahead and put in a lift station and actually take away the septic tank systems like that and just convert it to a lift station.
Move staff recommendation.
Second. We have a motion second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries 5-0. South County Reverse Osmosis Water Treatment Plant, professional services by Kimberly Homer Associates, Inc., and for upgrades and modifications to restore capacity. Work order number 14, amendment number 1, found on pages 102 through 106.
I move staff recommendation A
Second.
and B.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. County Attorney Matters, Responding Resolution, Part 2 of Chapter 171, Florida Statutes, Interlocal Service Boundary Agreement, found on pages 107 through 118.
Commissioners, on April 18th, the City of Fellsmere initiated a resolution under Chapter 171, which allows for interlocal service boundary agreements to be negotiated. Under the statute, we're required to respond within 60 days. On May 1st, the board directed us to prepare the responding resolution, and that's what's in front of you today. The statute allows the resolution to identify additional unincorporated or incorporated areas or both for discussion, and can designate additional issues for discussion over and above those which were identified in the initiating resolution. As a result, the resolution before you has as an Exhibit B a map of the entire county, and the intent is we'd like to have all areas of the county on the table when we're discussing either annexation, service delivery, or both. Exhibit C primarily deals with the issues involved, and they have to do with service delivery, the fiscal responsibility, and potential boundary adjustments with respect to those services. That is a very short sketch. Exhibit C is actually a little longer, but what we're trying to do is determine which areas will be served by municipalities, which areas will be served by the county, and for all the variety of services that must be provided, address each of them with respect to potential geographic boundaries that may be adjusted. We want to look at land uses, densities, and intensities as has already been identified by Fellsmere. There are other issues involving potentially sending and receiving sites for transfer of development rights, issues related to affordable housing, and issues related to a countywide concurrency management system. So what's before you today is the responding resolution required by statute that identifies areas and issues that we would like to put on the table to begin the negotiations with Fellsmere. And we do have a joint meeting scheduled tomorrow night, I think, to get a start on some of these discussions. Up until this point, we've been working primarily at the staff level, but I think tomorrow night will be a very good opportunity to get some thoughts from both boards of elected officials as to where they see us going on all these issues with respect to annexation, land use, and service delivery. So with that, I'd recommend that you approve the responding resolution, authorize the chairman's signature, and we will send it to the city of Fellsmere.
Commissioners?
I move to approve our county attorney's recommendation.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries 5-0. Stand down resolution memorandum dated May 14, 2007, found on pages 119 through 123.
In the beginning of March, a group of the mayors got together at Vero Beach City Hall and suggested pursuing the interlocal agreements as an option to charter. And based on that, a working group of the city managers, city attorneys was put together to try and move forward on how to get that process going. Felsmere initiated it, where we have just responded. I believe Sebastian has a responding resolution on their agenda tomorrow night, and the Shores Thursday night, so the process is starting to move. At our last meeting of the working group of managers and attorneys, the city representatives proposed what they call the stand-down resolution, but it's really an interlocal agreement between the county and all the municipalities. And what that would do is all parties would agree that there would be no annexations, increases in density, or increases in heights during a one-year period during which the interlocal agreements on annexation were being negotiated. In that stand-down agreement, Felsmere has excluded any pending applications for annexation, and the county reserved the right to challenge those applications. But the main nature of the agreement is for a one-year period there will be no annexation of land that as of May 1st is in the unincorporated area of the county outside the urban service area. No changes to the boundary line of the county's urban service area from what it was May 1st. No increases in heights or densities for land that was in the unincorporated area as of May 1st. And any change to these restrictions limiting height, density, and annexation or urban service area boundaries would only be changed by a supermajority vote of all the parties to the agreement. This does not apply to lands for which annexation petitions were submitted before May 1st, nor does it preclude any party from bringing a challenge to the annexation or related comprehensive plan amendments. That's the substance of this agreement, and the idea is to maintain the status quo and give all the local governments a chance to work on the interlocal agreements that we were just discussing in the prior resolution. So it would be my recommendation that you adopt this interlocal agreement.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion second. Discussion?
Discussion, yes. I'm most hopeful that this will be productive and that business will be done in a good stately manner. I do, under this scenario, have a concern that we as a county commission somehow, don't want to be cooperative, and we certainly do, I think, and do want it to move forward. I don't want you to take this personally, but I do have a concern about the point person, and I would like to suggest that we not have a point person, but as a collective group, that we be the group as a whole to act in unison, and that might give some confidence in what we're. Not that I'm not confident in the point person, but that would be a point, I think, of contention that people can hang their hat on, that, for whatever reason, it's not going well because of this. Mm-hmm. Let's take that off the table, and let's, as a group, come together and decide that this can work and this can happen, and we'll do the very best we can to help this move along.
Well,
I'm not aware of it. Yeah, go ahead.
Commissioner Bowden, I stated it that day that the chairman wanted to be designated as the point person, and I've been in attendance with the interlocal meetings, and I think they've been very productive, very open, and I have not had the opportunity to allow the point person to interfere with my energy and my focus and my attention to the interlocal agreement. What part was humorous?
the interfere part, that you haven't allowed me to interfere. Have I tried?
No one has.
Did I misunderstand that?
No.
And I don't know, the only point person we talked about at the time was when we wanted to meet with the city of Fellsmere, and I met with their mayor, and with their staff and our staff. As far as I know, there is no point person at this point on this resolution or any of these resolutions. Am I mistaken in that?
Oh, I thought we had you as a point person on this project.
That was a one deal thing where we went up and met with them to talk about this before it moved further.
Well,
I'm not aware of any other. Am I mistaken? Can somebody refresh my memory if I am?
I was concerned about that.
Yeah, and I was understanding that maybe the attorney was under that impression. Are you under that impression?
Or staff.
Or staff?
No.
Okay.
I feel that we've got direction from the full commission to work with the staffs of the other cities to try and go forward on the issues that the commission has identified. And I'm very hopeful that the joint meetings that we hold not only with Fellsmere but with the other cities will give us some direction on how to develop those agreements, especially as it relates to who's going to provide what services, who's going to pay for them. These are big policy decisions that you all need to be involved in.
Okay, then we make it perfectly clear, because I don't think the community, now I've been getting phone calls and I've had people talk to me, so we've cleared the air. Yeah. There is no point person and nobody's negotiating, and we're a commission as a whole.
And I think that's understood by every commissioner that's ever sat here. Some may abuse that, but I clearly understand it. I've stated it many times that anything that happens in this county with staff or anybody else, it takes 3 votes to give direction. I understand that clearly, have always understood it clearly, and to my knowledge, I have never violated that with staff or anyone else. And I don't like the innuendo that is the case.
Now, let me diffuse this and just kind of bring a little bit of peace and harmony here.
Might be a little too late.
I believe, Commissioner, and I was kind of under the same assumption that Commissioner Bowden was. We had given you authority as a commission with 3 votes to be the point person. I didn't realize it was just the one specific. And I think not to try to put words in Commissioner Bowden's mouth, but I think that's where she was coming from. And if that's passed, then I think Commissioner Bowden's concerns are allayed. And that I think that's where it was coming from.
Well, it couldn't have been too complicated to understand that it was a one-time thing, because I understood it.
Well, thank you for speaking for yourself.
And I appreciate your humbleness on that, but you're about as sharp as everybody up here. So.
Now, if we can get on with the resolution, are there any other comments?
Just a question. We're on number 3, the grandfathering clause. That's just kind of a. They can move forward with annexations, but we still reserve the right to challenge them at some point if we feel the need to. Is that?
That's correct.
The other thing,
and I have to point out that if Fellsmere was going to move forward with their annexations, we wanted to have the ability to raise whatever issues we thought were pertinent. But in the negotiation of this agreement, the city of Sebastian also wanted the right to raise issues as well. So it's now any party, whereas initially it was the county reserving the right.
Okay. And then the version we have here right in front of us was approved by Vero Beach last night. Is that correct? Or
last Tuesday, I think.
Last Tuesday. Okay. And I see that Jason has been copied and all this, and I don't know if Mayor Savage or Jason, would you like to comment on this? Is this something that the City Council will be looking at and voting on?
Yes, sir. Good morning, everybody. It's good to be here. Jason Unamaker, City Manager. We brought this up for discussion at our last meeting. We did not approve it. We held it over until our joint discussion tomorrow night. One of the areas of concern for the City of Fellsmere was the applicability of this. And first, let me step back and say that we are already where this agreement gets us. This is something that is a gesture of good faith on part of all the entities. The City of Fellsmere, when we issued that initiating resolution, we're bound up in that good faith period. So right now, we could not bring in additional properties that have not already been submitted. But it was felt at the ISBA staff group that maybe this would give an added comfort level. But one of the issues that came up subsequently was it's so restricted to the areas that are impeded It deals solely with the city of Fellsmere. So I know a number of my council members brought up the fact that maybe this should apply to any lands that were not submitted by May 1st. Should not be annexed at this point, incorporated, unincorporated, or I should say inside or outside the service area.
Yeah, that's the change. I think we've changed it so it states that. Am I correct?
Yeah, this is a restriction on any municipality that enters into the agreement.
Okay.
Not just on Fellsmere.
No, but my point was that it only pertains to lands outside the urban service area. So that cities could bring in lands that are within the urban service area through annexation.
I don't know if that was the intent for us to contest cities annexing outside the urban service area, or inside, excuse me, inside the urban service area. And for example, if Sebastian wanted to do an annexation for some reason that was inside the urban service area, now the issue with height and densities was, if I'm not mistaken, some discussion. But just to do an annexation that may already fall in line with the county's comprehensive land use plan. I don't know if that was this commission's intent, was to impede the cities or the municipalities in that effort.
Well, this is primarily an agreement that the cities put together. They feel that it's going to take up to 12 months to develop these agreements.
Right.
I was not particularly of that opinion. I thought it could be done quicker, but this was something that they put together with input from everyone. The city of Vero Beach generated initially. It went back and forth to the cities and the county, and this is the end result.
The other thing is with this one-year agreement, it states in here that this ceases to exist if we have a first reading of the ordinance, or also if the negotiating the interlocal service boundary is stopped.
Well, that's a very important point that I overlooked.
That is a very important point. And what this does with this agreement puts the county in the position that, based on what I've understood so far, is that the 20,000 acres that is being annexed is not on the table for negotiation. And if that continues, and it's not on the table for negotiation, this stops us from doing anything and completely eliminates our option to move forward with charter government. And I think everybody needs to understand, if I'm reading this properly, that the 20,000 acres is not on the table for negotiation, and the ordinance, if we have a first reading of the ordinance, that stops this one-year agreement. They can continue to move forward with annexing, depending on how it's done and so on and so forth, and it leaves us, I think, at a tremendous disadvantage, particularly when we're going to be sitting down and negotiating in good faith to come up with a good agreement. And I think that we're just taking another chit off the table that gives us some ability to negotiate. Negotiations work when both sides have something to lose and both sides have something to gain, not when one side has everything to gain and the other side has everything to lose. And I don't like that clause in this, and I will not support it with that clause in there.
The ordinance that the chairman's referring to is an ordinance that would propose a home rule charter. At its May 1st meeting, the commission decided not to set the charter for public hearing. They effectively tabled it to allow the interlocal agreement process to go forward. This was a provision that was inserted at the request of the attorney for the town of Orchid, I believe, that in the event the county schedules a public hearing on the ordinance for charter, that would allow any party to the agreement to get out of it prior to the one-year stand-down period.
And I might add that we've spent considerable money and time developing a draft charter. And hopefully in the very near future, and I would have hoped before now, that will be on the internet, people can look at it. And I think that if the public wants to have a public hearing and a reading on this ordinance and to work on that charter, I think we should have the right to do that. The step after that would be to whether to vote whether or not to put that on a ballot. But I don't like closing the public out on something this important, and this is extremely important, and this commission has chose to just shut the public out of the process, and I think that's a big mistake.
Chairman, if I could?
Yes.
One, I mean, regarding the public process, I don't think there's anything here that shut the public out. All this does is stipulate that if the county decides to move forward with the home rule charter, that this agreement dissolves. So it puts us back on equal footing. We can go into our various pursuits. But if it would be unfair to have us bound by this agreement while the county, in an act of bad faith, pursues the home rule charter. That's something we'll protect ourselves against. But also, this issue about lack of public input, lack of cooperation, it just isn't so. When we transmitted to community development staff, Mr. Keating, a copy of the Fellsmere Villages concept for the text amendment to our comp plan, not because we have to, but as an act of good faith to work with the county on this. Is it specifically on the table under 171? No, not from our perspective, but it doesn't mean we can't work together on it.
Well, my argument and the comments I just made weren't directed directly at you about not having public input or whatever. I'm talking about the public in this entire county that has an interest in this, and we've shut it down. We've effectively, minus mine and Peter's vote, but we've shut it down and said, you know what, we don't want to hear from you about what you want in the charter, because we know what we want to do, and we just want to shut it down now. The other thing is I would be willing to leave this in here as one commissioner if you'd put the 20,000 acres in there. But that's not on the table. And if we're going to negotiate in good faith, I think everything needs to be on the table. That's my perspective. I realize that I'm in a minority, but that's where I stand on the issue.
As you pointed out, and when we talked previously, negotiations have to be done where something's given up from both sides. When we had our conversation, there was no give on your part, sir.
There was none on yours either.
Absolutely we have. We've foregone thousands and thousands of acres where we could have proceeded to annex. We have, look, it was made, that point was made clear right here that there were certain properties that were going to come in. Corrigan, Graves, numerous others. So the fact that we've kind of pulled a slowdown, that is something that we did, the city of Fellsmere, to kind of stand back and take a look at where we are. And we could have proceeded, sir. So we have conceded in that regard.
I understand that, Jason, and it's been made very clear. We've discussed this 3 or 4 times, publicly here, with you privately, and at these meetings. I see that as saying, we're going to take 20,000 acres, and so either you sign the interlocal agreement, or we're going to take the rest of the county, or how many other thousands of acres we want. It's kind of like.
No, sir. That's a misrepresentation of what I just said. The interlocal service boundary agreement will stipulate the terms under which additional properties could be annexed. We will not be annexing properties until that's worked out.
Annexing other than the 20,000 acres.
That's correct.
But you're going to annex the 20,000 acres.
Absolutely, yes, sir.
Yeah. And what you're saying, in effect, is we're going to annex 20,000 acres, and unless we have an interlocal agreement, you're going to continue to annex even more acreage.
That's not what I said. I feel like I'm alone in the room.
Where am I missing? Tell me where I'm missing this, Jason.
What I just said. We're bound up in that process. Let's say that we drop the interlocal agreement. We don't want to pursue it anymore. Y'all could reinitiate and bind us up again in a good faith period on those lands. But it's not our intent to do that. I think you're assuming right off the bat that we're going to negotiate in bad faith. It is our intent to get on a playing field where all the participating parties agree what these lands could.
Let me just for a second, because I want to be sure I'm clear on this, because maybe I'm mistaken. But what I'm understanding you to say, what you put on the table, is we're going to keep the 20,000.
Yes, sir.
But in a good faith here, when what we're putting on the table is we're not going to annex any more than the 20,000, unless we, if we can get this interlocal agreement. So to me, it sounds like. Yeah, it is. They're saying we got 20,000 and we're going to keep that. Unless you sign an interlocal agreement, we're going to annex more. Because you're taking it off the table for the interlocal agreement. So I'm assuming that you're planning on annexing more based on what you're saying.
No, what we're attempting to do is to work with the property owners who feel somewhat powerless in their current position. And they were pushed to that point by several issues. And I don't think it's the point to rehash all that right now. But what we want to get, the goal of this agreement is to find common ground with the sister cities, with the county, on what ultimately could become of those lands beyond what they are currently, taking into account all the goals. And one of the big goals of y'all has been preservation. And I just throw that out there because that seems to be one of the biggest. And set aside areas that could meet those goals in exchange for other services, whether that's an extension of the urban service area, whether that's permission to annex, but everybody would be on the same page, and we wouldn't take any of those steps to annex properties until everybody that's a part of the agreement was agreeable to it.
One of the things we did identify for the Treasure Coast and the governor's committee I served on, is identifying lands for preservation and lands that would be better suited for one thing rather than another, and this, that, and the other. I think that all of us are willing to do that, and there would be consequences for doing one or the other, or privileges or whatever we come up with. That has to be all ironed out. We're not saying you're bad, we're good, you're good, we're bad. This kind of stuff has to all stop. And we all have to start talking and working together. And this back and forth banner of, putting words in each other's mouths, or trying to or not trying to, it just needs to stop. And
it's generally the way you negotiate.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I guess I understand where you're painting the worst case scenario, and I understand how quite possibly the city manager may be painting the best case scenario. And somewhere in between there's got to be some logic, and I think that's really what we're going to work out on Wednesday night, or start going in that direction. I think the city, you're concerned about the city of Fellsmere annexing the rest of Indian River County. I'm hearing in this interlocal agreement that no, they're not after the rest of Indian River County. I'm hearing them say they are interested in 20,000 acres. And is that appropriate? Well, I don't know what their uses are with that yet. It's not my intent to keep Fellsmere, or the city of Fellsmere, barefoot and pregnant for the rest of their life, for the lack of a better term. And that's what I think we're going to try to work out. I think that there's needs out there. Right now, they've got to drive to the east side of 95 in order to get to a supermarket.
I understand that.
And I think that things can be done properly. Things can be done better. There can be opportunities here. And at the same time, I agree. We have to worry about the entire county. And I'm not saying that you are wrong, and I'm not saying that Jason's right. I'm saying, but somewhere in the middle is literally where we should wind up before we wind up lawyering up and going to court and all this other kind of stuff that concerns me tremendously. And I think that really, as far as the position to negotiate, I don't know. I think we're really going to start that dialogue tomorrow night, but I think this is a very important step. It's not a perfect step. There's some things in here that perhaps may come back to bite us.
The only thing in here that I would like to see out of this is the first reading of the ordinance. And I think that gives us some latitude.
And I understand your concern about how the public's input on it, and in the charter process, or how we're breaking that up and disrupting that by not going to public hearing on it. But I have a different take on it. And my take on it is that the public's input into the charter process to where it is right now was circumvented. Not that it was inappropriately circumvented, because clearly there's two methods of instituting the charter. But we did not go through a charter commission in order to get this done. We did it as a board of county commissioners, and it was a lot more succinct to get to the end product. But as far as saying that all of a sudden that we don't have the input from the community on this and not go to public hearing would be a disservice, I can't say that the way we did it is a true service to the community either.
Well, let's understand why it was done that way.
I understand.
It was done that way because of the massive annexations that were taking place, and in the process of taking place. And the other thing is I could live with this one-year agreement if they take out the first reading. I think that we need that in our bag to sit down and negotiate.
Well, I think that the reason all of this escalated it up and ratcheted it up was because of this talk on charter government. If we hadn't been talking about charter government and this and that and the other, it wouldn't have happened.
They'd still be farming.
It's just.
I don't agree with that either.
I know you don't, but
there's been annexing going on up there for the last several years, and there's been talk of and I'm not opposed to the annexing as such. I'm opposed to what's going to happen to the land. And what we're going to provide here. We've got room right now in the county, as I've said over and over again, for another 160,000 residents, and to start expanding that before we're filled up. And you've got 8 square miles currently, and the city of Vero Beach, I think, is 12 square miles. It's a beautiful city. I don't know that you need 30 or 40 or 50 square miles to make a nice city like Palm Bay or Port St. Lucie.
And if I could interject on that, there's a big difference between the topography.
I'm taking the worst case scenario.
And that's what I said earlier about, and I'm not letting Jason off the hook on his best case scenario. But I think, I think what's important here, and I was asked this question the other day. Well, what is the right size for Fellsmere? Well, I don't know, but somebody said, is it 25,000? And that's based on some comments that have been made. And I said, well, I don't know that, but the town of Orchid is content with having 4,000. but there's a big difference in their tax base. How many?
400.
400. But they have ocean, they have river, they have, I mean, they've got a different tax base. City of Vero Beach, they've got a lot of waterfront, they've got a power plant, they've got, ocean. Fellsmere, they have swampland. And it's going to be difficult, and they need to do something. Now, what that something is, I'm hoping we'll work that out come tomorrow night.
Well, and again, let me just repeat. The only thing I'm arguing for right now is to take the clause out that says, except that in the event the county conducts a first reading of an ordinance. And I think having a first reading of an ordinance shouldn't cancel this agreement. I disagree with that.
Is that coming, Mr. Collins, from what the municipalities want in here?
Yes, ma'am.
Coming with what you said the town of Orchid proposed.
Anthony Gorganese, who I know represents Orchid. He may represent Indian River Shores, but I'm not really sure of that.
I think that's interesting to note, that it's not the city of Fellsmere pushing for that.
Right.
I know that. I never said it was.
No,
the other thing
I was under the assumption it was.
No, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to leave you with that assumption.
Well, you didn't. I jumped to it.
Will said earlier that the town of Orchid did this,
Okay,
and I was aware of it. I might add also that I think this attorney, correct me if I'm wrong, Will, but I think he also represents or works with the League of Cities. So they're looking at this as a statewide thing where cities and counties are having this disagreement.
That may or may not be. I'm not sure who he represents, who all his clients are, but keep in mind the whole point of this agreement is for everybody to take some deep breaths, give us time to work on the interlocal agreements that Fellsmere has initiated and all the cities are responding to right now.
And I think that's the way to go. That's the common sense way. Let's just, move forward with this. And I come from a background of a city and municipalities, and there's not always a situation where cities and municipalities and counties can come together. And I think this is one of those situations, because the state legislature pits us against each other a lot of times. But this is some situation where I think this community can do it. And I would like to go forward with what is in place now and see where we get.
Let me mention too something, because we're talking about good faith here. And I know the cities, mayors, and I believe their legal staff have had one meeting at least, perhaps two. And the only reason I know of it is because Tom White announced it when he was speaking at North County Republican Club that he had that meeting coming up. And when we're talking about negotiating in good faith and everybody having their cards on the table and everybody sitting down to negotiate, when you've got 5 mayors and their legal staff negotiating without including the county, to me it seems like it's kind of us against them or them against us, rather than sitting down and trying to come up with a
Well, I think we pushed
process.
them in, but Commissioner, you're right. I agree. That is a true statement, but I think we pushed them into that process with this charter because it automatically puts us against them.
I don't see it that way, because this is county government. Everybody in this county is a part of our government. They may be a part of the city also, but they're a part of this county.
I mean, and I'm for God and apple pie. I mean, I don't understand the significance of that being debated right now. I mean, throwing out obvious things we all agree upon. But let's just take Fellsmere out of this mix. The sovereignty of the city of Sebastian should be taken into account. The sovereignty of Indian River Shores and these other local municipalities. And by us moving forward with the charter, we're looking at taking some of those away. And so for them to sit down and get their ideas as far as what they can and cannot live with, I think that's only appropriate in the process of us sitting down and starting to negotiate this.
And throughout all this, I'll repeat again, the only thing I want to see coming out of this is where it says, except that in the event the county conducts a first reading of an ordinance. Listen, it takes 3 of you here to even schedule that public hearing. So if you're comfortable that you don't want to schedule it, that's fine. That's your choice. But this is taking your choice away from you.
Well, I would like to go with what is recommended by the other municipalities and what is here and what our attorney has brought forward, and so I move for this.
I believe I made the motion.
Already a motion on it in a second.
Yeah.
Okay. Gosh, we've been at this a long time. Well, let's vote.
Any further discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I just give my comments. I too think we're limiting ourselves. I don't think the fact that we want to schedule a public hearing should kill this document. We could change it says that we won't conduct an election or something, but I think the ability to hold a public hearing, we should have that capability. And this takes that away from us, and I don't think that's right for the public. So I'll be opposed to the motion.
I could even support that put in there an election, but not a public first reading of the ordinance. to get input from the public and to put the ordinance where public input would put it. And again, you know, I don't know why the commission feels it's important to have this in here. It takes 3 of you to schedule a public hearing. I can't do it. So I don't know why you want to give something away and take choices away from it.
Very well. That's a very good point. Why, as a commissioner, do I feel that it's important? Because we had about 4 municipalities, other than Fellsmere, come forth and suggest that they'd like to have this in here.
I'm sorry, that's not accurate.
3?
The town of Orchid came forward and said they'd like this.
Was it just one, Will?
I was under the impression that it was Orchid and Indian River Shores. I could be wrong. I'm not sure.
Okay. Half right's pretty good for me. So we had 2 municipalities, other than the city of Fellsmere, that would like to have this in here. And keep in mind, this agreement is binding them also. And they have some concerns. They're not doing this, in my opinion, on behalf of the city of Fellsmere. And I'm not talking about this on behalf of the city of Fellsmere.
And it's also been adopted by the city of Vero Beach already with this language in it.
So why do we want it in there? Well, quite frankly, because they'd like to have it in there.
Well, you know, this is part of the negotiation too, except we're not setting down a meeting. I mean, this resolution can go back and be readopted or discussed or debated.
Well, and I'm not after to slow the negotiations down with the interlocal agreement. I'm ready to move forward with this, and I understand Commissioner O'Brien's concern, and Commissioner Wheeler, I understand your concerns, but I think to have, I'm not going to say non-affected, but relatively non-affected municipalities want to have that in there. There's a reason for them. There's a reason for them and their sovereignty on how a charter is going to affect them with this interlocal agreement, and I'm ready for the question.
Any further discussion? All right, we'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Fleischer, how did you vote?
I support.
He was in favor of it.
Okay.
Passed.
We're going to have to go to roll call for these votes.
The next item is Commissioner Peter O'Brien, update St. John's Water Management District land swap with the Corrigan family.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. I just wanted to update the commission. As you remember, St. John's their governing board was going to vote on this proposed land swap, and then they postponed that vote until June 12th. Subsequent to that change, I met with Mr. Robert Christensen yesterday, and basically I think we agreed to disagree. As the land procurement agent for the St. John's, he has certain goals and objectives he needs to accomplish, and I told him, as representing the residents of Indian River County, I have certain goals and accomplishments. So I think we kind of agreed that we're going to disagree on this particular land swap. He did offer to come back before the county in either a public workshop or a public special meeting. And in talking with Bob Keating, I think we've settled on June the 6th for that meeting. Is that still good, Bob? Okay. So at that point, we will invite Mr. Christensen to come back and give us more information, particularly on how they valued the land and came up with a determination that this was proper use of taxpayers' money and proper values and things like that. And he would like to explain St. John's position, why they need to go forward with this. So I think it'll be good for this board and the community to hear more about that land swap, since it does involve tax dollars. And the Land Acquisition Advisory Committee was very concerned about this swap also. So it'll give all parties a chance to come in and comment and hear a little bit more on it before it goes before the governing board. So I just wanted to update the board on that. Bob will work on getting the workshop or meeting scheduled, but June 6th looks like the day for right now.
That's great. Yeah, that's good.
Anything else?
Okay. Yeah, just an update.
I guess that will be publicly advertised. I have some people in the community that's been asking me about it, and just to make sure that everybody's aware of that.
Yep.
Thank you.
Under special districts, approval of minutes, regular meeting March 13, 2007 for Emergency Services District.
So moved to approve.
Second.
Motion, we have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Approval of modification number 1 to the grant agreement 06-06-DS-3W-10-40-01-277, found on pages 126 through 129.
Move to approve that agreement you just.
Second.
said.
Stumbled
Come on,
through.
Wes,
I
spit
know.
it all out.
I know.
That's a long number.
I wasn't going to start that one
That's
again.
like a
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Solid Waste Disposal District, approval of minutes, regular meeting, February 20th, 2007.
So moved.
A
Second.
motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Approval of minutes, regular meeting, April 3rd, 2007.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign.
Commissioner,
Yes.
I'm sorry, go ahead. I'll get you after you get done.
Okay, well, yeah, okay. Approval of bid award for Indian River County bid, number 2007063, 20 cubic yard roll-off, containers, and, Utilities Department Solid Waste Disposal District, and that's found on pages 130 through 136.
Move to approve staff recommendation.
Motion and a second. Do we have a second?
second.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Mr. Baird?
I'm sorry to interrupt. The June 6th meeting, what time? I didn't get the time, and I
Day of
asked.
the week is that?
It's Wednesday.
It's Wednesday. What time was the meeting for June 6th, as we can?
Joe, let me get back with Bob and see what he talked to Mr. Christensen about.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a good job.
The commission's all open, though, so we can do it anytime on June 6th.
All right.
Okay.
Does the board have a preference? I mean,
Commissioner, what I'd suggest with it being the St. John's coming here, we should be as flexible in our calendar or time frame for them as far as travel time from Palatka. So my preference is to get as many of their representatives here to discuss this issue as possible.
Okay.
okay.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
No problem.
Okay, meeting adjourned.